Hi, I'm Sook-Lei, and I'm going to speak to you today about what you might do in the neuroplasticity and neurorehabilitation lab. So we are an interdisciplinary lab focused on stroke recovery. We have about 8 to 15 lab members at any given time, and it's pretty interdisciplinary. So we have people from occupational therapy and occupational science, neuroscience, engineering, and computer science, and other things. Our biggest focus, I would say, is on using big data and data science to analyze brain imaging to identify stroke biomarkers that could inform rehabilitation and care. Our lab format is using, usually we have a weekly lab meeting plus one-on-one meetings before or after that meeting in person. So that's where I sit in a room and lab members come in one after another and meet with me until we've covered everything that they want to talk about. That could be things that are upcoming or things that have happened. We can go over papers or abstracts or posters, etc. I also am available by Slack for quick communication. And a question I often get asked is what makes a successful trainee in our lab? I would say we generally look for people who are kind. The lab is really nice. We look for people who are collaborative, who want to work together, who are also independent and self-motivated though, and are willing to take initiative and ask questions, as well as detail-oriented, which is really important when you're working with large data sets. So that's kind of our general, what seems to work well in our lab. We also get asked what was a typical day look like. I would say we don't really have any typical days, but we do have some typical projects, and any given day you'll be working on some subset of these. So our biggest project, like I alluded to before, is what we call Enigma Stroke Recovery. This is an international consortium of over 100 researchers worldwide. We harmonize that data from all these researchers around the world to create big data stroke MRI analyses. So I'll talk about that a little bit more, as well as like what each type of student would do with each of these projects. But one thing that everyone in the lab does is lesion tracing. So I'll also talk about that on the next slide. We also are becoming more active in a variety of StrokeNet studies. StrokeNet is an NIH-funded network of clinical trial research sites across the US. We've just become activated as a site for Verify, which is a study that's using transcranial magnetic stimulation and MRI at baseline after stroke to predict outcomes at 90 days. And we are likely to also be part of a telerehab study as well. That's great. It gives us a way to kind of have a more clinical connection to research as well. We also have a number of other projects in our lab. So one is this health tech makerspace that we run for both OT and PT. It gives students, faculty, and staff an opportunity to come learn about 3D printing or 3D print things they need for the clinic, for instance, at Keck, as well as Arduinos and other types of tech. We also have a stroke advisory board that's comprised of people with the lived experience of stroke and their caregivers and clinicians, and they advise us on aspects of our lab work. They also do like advocacy for people with stroke. And then we also have Repro-Rehab. That's an NIH-funded program. It stands for Reproducible Rehabilitation Research. It's an educational research program where we teach people usually with clinical backgrounds who don't have experience with computer programming, how to do basic computer programming and statistics so that they can do more reproducible research using code. And then other projects as they come up. I also have a note here that we get a lot of inquiries about our brain-computer interface or virtual reality or non-invasive brain stimulation research. That's a little bit less active these days for a variety of reasons. But if that's what you're really looking for, we're not doing a lot of that anymore right now. So what would typical students do? If you're a postdoc or a PhD student, most of your work will probably be on Enigma stroke recovery. This is really the meat of our lab. So we do a ton of like intense neuroimaging analyses as well as statistical analyses of these big data MRI projects. Some of our PhD students now are working on looking at perivascular spaces to predict stroke outcomes, as well as brain age and like diffusion-based metrics of like brain health. So like you would take a scientific area and really go deep into one of those using a big data MRI approach. Like I said, we also have lesion tracing. The postdocs or PhD students tend to oversee these processes and help train and teach the other lab members. Everyone in the lab knows how to trace a lesion though. And then PhD students with clinical backgrounds or postdocs with clinical backgrounds or TMS and MRI experience would be very helpful for any of our StrokeNet studies as well. And everyone helps with participant recruitment and follow-up. If you're a PP-OTD student or a level 2 fieldwork to capstone student, some of the things that our students have done, because you are here just for a year, it is easiest for you to kind of jump right in as a program manager for some of the other things like the health tech makerspace. Our current fieldwork to capstone student is a program manager here, so she's creating cool events for students to learn about 3D printing, like 3D printing Valentines and 3D printing snowflakes, and like getting to work with kind of like Arduinos and lighting to like add lighting to those things. So it's really a way to your job in that role is to help people get more interested and involved in 3D printing and different types of health tech. We have another fieldwork to capstone student who's the program manager for our stroke advisory board. So she liaisons with the different students, or sorry, with the advisory board members, and then listens to what they want to do and then helps to create those opportunities for them. Another EOTD student is our Repro Rehab program manager. So it's a lot of coordination and organizing, helping with applications, sending out emails, setting up meetings, like all hands meetings, as well as our in-person research summit. And then all of our clinical students have the opportunity to be part of our StrokeNet studies by doing clinical testing. This is where a PP-OTD student would be great if you want some clinical research experience or experience as a research clinician, because we would love somebody to kind of take this over to like coordinate the testing, understand all aspects of like a research study in a clinical environment. And then, like I said, everybody learns to trace lesions on stroke MRIs and then helps with different aspects of data scrubbing. We often get asked, where do our alum go next? So I'd say our PhD students and postdocs often go to either academic positions, so we have alum that are faculty and postdocs, or industry to do research, so data science, human factors research, or consulting. Most of our PP, OTD, or fieldwork to capstone students wanted their experience in our lab, and they bring that into a clinical study next. So a lot of times they haven't had like real world clinical experience yet, so they go to neurorehab or acute care SNFs. But ultimately, I think it positions them well to become clinical faculty or clinical research associates. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to my lab members. Lab is super fun and nice. We have a good time together, so we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks a lot.